We played almost 100 games that were released in this year of Beyonce 2024. We have deliberated, we have discussed, and now it's time to officially rank the best games of the year.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph, and that's right. It's the end of the year. It's time for our best games of the year. As Mikey said, we played almost 100 new games this year. And not new but they're new from this year.
Yeah.
Like, we played a ton. It was by far our best year in terms of that.
And it was also a really good year for board games.
Unreal. So over on our
Very
Patreon,
strong.
we're actually going to have an extra 11 through 30 best games of the year. You'll have the top 10 here. So make sure to check that out and sign up for our Patreon if you want to check out that content. Because it was literally like the last couple months where we've been really trying to get a lot of these games played. We've just been like, man, this is gonna be a rough one. Like there were so many big, like heavier games, so many like good small games. I mean, just, it was all over the place. So very, very excited to get into it because it's been a banger of a year.
It's been a super good year. We're going to talk about our 10 personal favorites. These are just subjective to us, so don't get offended if we don't name your favorite game, but they are objectively the best ones.
We didn't name your favorite game, it's because it's trash.
Yeah, it's trash, and therefore you're wrong.
Yeah.
No, but the other caveats to keep in mind is we also did play almost 100 games in 2024, but you know how many more games were released? A lot more games.
A lot more than
so
that.
we didn't name a certain game. It's possible that we just haven't played it yet and come back around next year because then we will often round out our list and re-rank it. Like we will re-rank our 2023 games real soon as well. So just note, just like if the game doesn't appear, guess what? Everything is fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, everything is fine. And with that, let's get to our top 10. 1 second, hang on.
Hey, come here.
Oh, that's right.
Listen.
The camera's
Hey.
turned. Hold on. It's
Come here, Nick.
It's for when we're doing
I see him.
top.
I see him. You know what's right here? Unsubscribe people. We call you the plebes.
Hey.
Okay? You think you could just come in? You know, if you had to go to the
Frickin'
Globe
butts.
Theater back in the day and stand in the mud, you still had to pay a penny. Okay? And now it's free to watch content, but it's not free to us, is it?
No.
You gotta subscribe. Okay? Subscribe right now. Frick. Hang on. We're getting ourselves back together now.
Oh man,
So sorry.
so aggressive.
Sorry. Well, you know what? There's unsubscribed people watching and they shouldn't.
Look at this. Follow
Okay.
this freaking sign, you butts.
Follow the sign.
Okay.
Okay.
What we're doing? What are we
We're talking about fishing, Nick.
Oh, that's our 10? Yeah, fishing's good.
Fishing is good. This is a trick-taking game.
Yeah.
We are fans of trick-taking. There's been a number of trick-taking games that we played that are new to us or new from this year that were really solid. We're kind of in a renaissance of trick-taking.
For a couple years now. Really, I feel like ever since The Crew came out, people are like, oh, people do like trick-taking games because we were literally talking to a couple designers a couple years back.
Yeah.
And they were literally saying that like prominent designers, and they were like, trick-taking's like dead. You can't sell a trick-taking game anymore. And that is no longer true. And I'm hyped about it.
Especially in a world where all of us are pinching our pennies a little bit more.
Small.
Small and easy to produce and cheap to buy are good.
Yeah.
So
this is fishing. It's by Friedman Freeze. That's why it's green, and that's why it starts with an F.
True.
And then I think this is about to come over to the States. It's not quite here yet,
Yeah, it's
but
been
you
on
should be able to get
pre-order.
it soon. Yeah. So this is a trick-taking game where the beginning of the game is kind of very normal trick-taking, where there's someone who leads with a suit, everyone else has to follow unless you don't have that suit, and then you can play off-suit, that kind of stuff. But there's no trump card, there's no special cards, there's nothing like that. And basically how the game works is at the end of a round, however many cards you collected from winning tricks, you're gonna get 1 point per card.
Yeah.
Great. But that's not a very, interesting trick-taking game. It's
not
kind of a
super
normal trick-taking
dynamic.
game. So here's the thing. When you collect your cards, they go into your boat, and then you're in your fishing pile. So when you need to draw new cards for the next round, you're going to draw from the cards that you won. But here's the thing. Every round, you're going to be drawing a certain amount of cards, but what if you didn't win enough cards to draw from? Like, what do you do?
I guess I have a smaller hand.
Do you have a fishing rod?
Oh, I gotta go fishing, that's
got a
right.
fishing
You
rod?
go fishing for more cards. So basically there is a seeded deck that has these kind of like level 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are randomly shuffled and stuff. And these cards are going to be better than the base starting cards. There's going to be a trump suit. The green fish trump suit will appear. There are special action cards that allow you to steal a card from the one of the cards that won. Even if you didn't win the trick, you get to take the best card and stuff like that. So there's all of a sudden going to be, and there's also up for the base suits higher numbers.
Yes.
So there's literally all better cards and stuff. So it's this thing where if I'm winning less, I don't have as much of a draw pile, so I get to get more of the juicy cards to hopefully win in future rounds. But the tricky bit is that each card you win throughout the game is worth a point, so you don't want to be not winning at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you need to be able to like make the turn and have all these powerful cards to maximize and get some of those sweet, sweet points.
Yeah.
And that's really what's so fun about this game is the way it kind of self-levels and balances throughout the game.
Yeah, because there is that constant tug of war with yourself where you're like, do I try and not win, and so I can get some of these fancy cards?
It's definitely tempting.
Yeah, because once those cards start coming out, the game starts changing a lot, and it's so much fun. I love trick taking and just kind of having this like power creep that's going on throughout the game where you don't know what people have. You're like, oh, I think this is the highest card in the game, and someone's like, nope, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that card was out yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I thought I was going to win that one. I didn't now. Or there's like one of the action cards where you'll lose the trick, but you get to just take one of the cards from the trick. So you're like, I'll take that super high card.
So now I have something good in my draw pile.
It's super, super fun. Again, we really love trick-taking games. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't know how they keep coming up with new trick-taking games, but they keep doing it.
Yeah.
And this one by Friedman Freeze is an absolute masterpiece. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it feels really different than other ones just because of the way that cards kind of continually get introduced throughout the game, which is super fun. So it's number 10, Fishing.
Number 9 is going to be a game that's just right up our alley. And this is Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age? Is the whole
Bronze
title?
Age, yeah. This is a board and dice game. It's almost like obligatory at this point that board and dice makes an appearance on our top 10 games of the year.
Yeah.
Because they make games that are exactly down our preferred lane to drive. So Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age is a civ builder kind of game, and you are... The reason we like this one so much is you know that we like combo wombos.
Yeah, and the wombos are combo.
We like things that can kind of chain together and create synergies. And as you're going through the game, it's got a few different things that are really cool. One, there is a dice placement mechanism where you are putting out dice and you are going to then get kind of better and worse different versions of the main actions in the game based on where you are kind of in the ranking. So if you're the highest in the ranking, which means you played the lowest die, so it is backward in that way, you're going to get a stronger version of the main action. But as you're placing out these dice and stuff, if you have high enough values in certain colors, you get to bump up temple tracks, which we also love bumping tracks.
Love that bumping tracks.
And so you are kind of like, well, I want to play all these 5s and 6s, but I'm going to be lower in priority for taking these actions.
The actions are going to be worse,
And then you are doing these actions in order from high to low of the dice you place. There's all these kind of interesting mechanisms of just how you go about
because sometimes you're like,
ordering the turns you take.
I want to do this before I do this, but you're like, oh, but I put a 6 here, and I put a 3 here. And again, you activate your dice in order of highest to lowest. You're like, oh, crap, I can't put a super high die here because I'm then going to activate this first. I need to activate this second or third. And so there's way more thought that goes into the dice placement where the first time we played it, we're like, oh, this is really, really good. And the second time we were like, oh, you can work this engine way crazier. And then you start getting these cards, which then starts building this crazy engine where every time you say use a 3, you're going to get all this stuff. You're going to get to do all these things. Every time you do this specific action, you get to do all these different things. And you just start comboing these wombos so hard. And it's just like, there's always going to be 1 or 2 turns of the game where you're just like, you need a cigarette afterwards. You're like, I did so much stuff in that turn. That is awesome. Where you're just like, boom, and now this, and now boom, and then now this, and now this. I mean, it's so much fun. It's great.
Yeah, there's really a lot of fun things to do. You are building buildings. You're kind of, there's this area influence, control. You're not fighting each other directly, but you are vying for, control of each of the regions. For scoring purposes, there's these kind of like NPCs you can fight, the sea people.
And come to your island,
and you are kind of moving around, building your buildings and stuff. And as you take stuff off your board, you're unlocking more and more kind of ability to gain stuff and score things. And then as you tuck cards under your palace, that's going to really make the augmentation of your turns really pop. And then everything's kind of worth points. If you put the stuff under your palace board, you're gaining points. The more stuff you build, you're gaining points and all this. It's just really one of those ones that feels like breezy in the sense that you can make a bunch of stuff work for you, but there is so many things to explore. And so it's like, how do I be as efficient and how do I maximize these combinations as best I can in this kind of what feels like sort of like an infinite little play box.
It's really good.
One of our favorite
it's so good.
board and dice games in a while. And that's saying something. They've had a really good year. That is Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age.
Next up is going to be Flip 7. It's unfortunately number 8, not number 7.
I know.
It doesn't deserve to be number 7. Number 7 deserves to be number 7. Flip 7, though, is so good. This is just a distilled game. It's just like, there's just
Pure
not an
and
ounce
simple.
of fat on this game.
Nope.
It's just like, it is a pure push your luck game. It's kind of in that no thanks. It doesn't play like no thanks, but just in that realm of like small card game that you can play with literally anyone. Gamers, non-gamers, younger kids, older people. Like, you can play with anyone across the gamut because it's just pseudo blackjack-y set collection. So basically what's going to happen is there's a big deck of cards. In that deck of cards, there are a whole bunch of numbered cards, numbered 0 through 12. And there's 1 0 card, there's 1 1, there's 2 2s, 3 3s, 11 11s, 12 12s. And there's a couple other action cards in there. Everyone is going to get dealt 1 card. And then when it comes back around to you, you have to either hit or stay. And that's it. That's basically the entire game.
You know the game now.
And so if you hit, you get another card. What you don't want is duplicate numbers. So if you end up with 2 10s, you've busted. And that's like the game. You basically want to keep going until you basically pass and decide to stay, and then you get to count all the values on your cards, and those are points. It's the first person to 200, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole game. So it's so easy. It's just like, you don't want duplicate numbers. Do you want to hit or stay? That's the game. Because you can even take out the action cards and just play with that, and it's just so simple that you're like, how did no one do that, first of all?
Yeah.
How did no one make that game
It's
yet?
just straight up so geniusly simple.
Yeah, and then you added a couple of these action cards, which kind of spiced up the game a little bit.
Excuse me. Yeah, the action cards add some fun, like, little moments. So there's a freeze card. So if a freeze card gets drawn, you can either freeze yourself or freeze someone else. And basically, they have passed now for the round. They will bank whatever they have. But, you know, if it's the first card's gone around, you have a 1, Nick's in the lead, I'll be like, okay, you don't get any more this turn. You're done. There's a second chance, which you collect for yourself, and that means if you ever draw a card that would make you bust, you instead spend your second chance and discard the duplicate card, and you get to keep playing. Of course, then you could bust immediately right after, which will probably happen. And then there's a draw 3 card. Now, this one's interesting, because you can play it on yourself or your opponent, and wherever it gets played, that person has to immediately draw 3 cards. Can't choose to stop. Whatever happens, happens. If it makes you bust or whatever, that's it. But it's a great way to potentially, like, man, I've got like a 1 and a 3.
I'll go for it.
I'll go for it. I got pretty good, stuff, because again, those 1s and 3s, there's only so many copies, but the high numbers are the dangerous ones, but of course they're the ones that are worth most points.
12 is worth 12 points, right?
The only other thing in the game are some modification cards. So it might give a plus 10. Or a ×2 or whatever. That means if you successfully stay, you'll order your number cards, and then once you have your number, add 10 to that or whatever, or double it. So there's some simple things like that, but like
that's it.
You can get a huge group of people playing this game. You can even combine 2 sets and play an even larger group. And it's just fun to go hit or stay. You know, people just be like, I got a 10, like I'm going for it. You know what I mean?
10,
and you immediately blow it, and it's very fun. So it creates great moments.
It's so fun to make fun of the people who bust. And then of course,
because you're right around the corner.
You're gonna do it immediately. And so you just like, it's raucous fun. It's just, like I said, it's a distilled game. There's just nothing else there. It's just the bare bones. Just every little part of it is easy and great, and it's just, you can play it with anybody. This is one of those games that's gonna last for a minute. Because it's relatively small. You can bring it anywhere. You can play with anyone, like we said, and so it's just gonna keep coming out over and over and over again, because even like a lot of like simple games you can kind of play with anyone, like ours are like Nana or Scout. It's like, this is even way simpler than even those. So it's just like,
and they create bigger, more raucous moments. So this is a perfect one for like the holidays, right? Because like anyone in the family can play this. You will get hootin' and hollering.
Bring it during
if you're
the holidays.
Cool people and stuff. So it's like, those are important games. This has been a good year for a lot of games that are on that lighter, accessible level. You will see more of them pop up later in this list. And that's part of why we've said this year has been so strong. Is like, it's really been, there's been good games from like kind of every possible genre and mechanism has had something really great this year. But that is Flip 7, ironically at 8. Number 7 is basically the same exact game. This is Civolution.
Basically the exact same game. Same size box,
same
everything about it.
This is the newest Stefan Feld game. Who made Castles of Burgundy. And this is a big old crunchy boy. It is a civ builder where you are sort of like these deities doing. I always think of it like you're doing a school project.
Yeah,
you're making like a world inhabited with people and things, and you are doing all sorts of stuff, and you're just sort of experimenting and seeing how much prosperity you can bring to your people and stuff. This is ultimately a dice action selection game where you're going to have a pool of dice, and as you roll your ones and twos, you'll collect them on your gigantic player dashboard.
It's so big.
At least it's functional. The whole thing is functional, but it's very large.
It does serve a purpose, but it's humongous.
It's huge. And you're going to collect your dice, and then we're going to have this big menu of actions that are going to always use a paired set of dice.
Yes.
So it's kind of the Castles of Burgundy-ness to it, although in that game you're only using one at a time. But again, it's kind of the dice you roll are going to dictate what you can do. There are also these kind of like ideas you can use to mitigate your dice rolls. But if you have like a 3 and a 6, you are going to move to the 3 and 6 kind of in your grid.
Yeah.
And whatever specific action those two dice kind of meet at is going to be the action you can take. And so you are doing all these things to,
so much you can do.
Create more people and spread around on the board and explore. You can start producing and gathering resources that way, which will lead to kind of like your prosperity. You can do mutations and give your people a beak or all these different things to kind of modify what your people do. And then there's all these different types of cards you can play. That are going to kind of go above your player dashboard that are going to, again, maybe change how your turns work when you do certain types of actions. They'll give you, there's all these tracks you can bump up, which are going to be the main way you score kind of your big hits of points during the era scoring. So you want to be working up these tracks. And this just very much feels like a game where it's big. It's very big.
So there's so many avenues you can
It's hard to like parse down into like
it is.
explainable terms, but it's sort of ultimately a game where it's just like choose a direction and start exploring that and see what happens, which is sort of the theme of the game as well.
Yeah, because like each of the actions, like again, there's a whole bunch. I'm not sure that it's like 20 or 25 somewhere in there. It's a huge amount of action.
Menu,
and each action has like a basic side that you start on, but then can upgrade to level 2 and then also upgrade to level 3. And every single action can do that. So you're kind of like, and again, you kind of get a starting card that might push you slightly in a certain direction. But it's like, so you could just be like, okay, this time I'm going to upgrade this action to level 3 and do that a bunch. And it's just like, this is like kind of one of those like Feast for Odin games where it's like, just pick something to do and just see if it works and just see what happens and kind of like explore it in that way, because a single play of this, 2 plays of this, 3 plays of this, you're just barely going to scratch the surface in terms of the different strategies, different avenues you can go down. So this is definitely one of those games you're going to want to play a bunch because of the fact that like you can just do something different each time and just see what happens. And then again, depending on like what cards you get, and that essentially again changes you up, it gets you new mutations and all this kind of stuff. It's just, there's so much depth in this game. It makes me kind of bummed out that like we do what we do because we don't get to repeat games that often.
I would love to dive into this and play it and replay it. We'll play it, but only ever so often.
And I think if we were able to play this game a bunch, I actually think it'd probably be higher on the list. We've only played it once at this point, and we still really liked it this much. And we also know that it's going to be higher, which is why it's on the list.
Sure.
But yeah, it's so good. I want to explore it really, really badly. Because there's a lot going on, and she a thick boy, and it's good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Nick, we gotta give a big shout out.
What?
We gotta give a shout out to Paula Deming.
Yeah.
Paula Damn Deming, everybody.
Paula Damn Deming.
Things get dicey. Obviously, you know her, but if you don't, you should fix that.
Doing?
She's amazing. But she last year brought to your birthday celebration a game called Draft and Write Records, which she was insistent that we were going to love.
Yeah.
And she were correct.
Yeah, she was right.
This game is amazing. This is,
it's my favorite roll and write
for both of us, our favorite roll and write game, or draft and write in this case. This is a game where you're drafting these cards, and it is you forming a band and going on tour and doing press events and stuff like that. And as you're drafting these cards, they're going to be things that pertain to your big sheet of stuff.
Stuff you're going to cross off.
And you're going to be crossing off stuff. So one thing might be getting band and crew members to fill out your kind of, your performance and they're going to have different values and these different colors. You have different color pencils that are going to be, hopefully if you make like a blue on the bottom of one person and the person who's below them has blue on the top, it creates a harmony between them. You want to be as harmonious as possible. Yeah, perfect. And you want to be as harmonious as possible because the more harmony you create, the more stuff you cross off on the harmony track.
Oh, yeah.
And as you get to those, they might give you bonus
Talk
icons.
about combo wombos,
and then
man.
these things go over here, and you cross off this thing over here on your tour little areas that you're going. And guess what? It gives you another bonus.
Yeah.
And this game is the combo womboiest flip and fill, roll and write, whatever you want of all time.
It's pretty nutty. And this is also one of those games that's like fun in the way where it's like, at least for us too, maybe other people like this, but it's very feast or famine where like I either get like 50 points or like 250. It just depends like on the game.
Yeah.
But I always have such a good time playing. We just played this recently at BGG Con. And I'm just like, gosh, I love Jurassic Right Records. It's just so much fun. It's just like, yeah, you're just drafting these cards, crossing stuff off, doing combo wombos, and just like putting together nutty ass turns. Just like insane stuff. And it's just fun. It's just fun to try to make that puzzle work. And it's just really, really, really good.
Yeah.
It's what I generally want in a roll and write. I like really combo-y roll and writes. And this is just like the best one out there right now. It's also got a cool theme. Like I'm glad that music is becoming more common of a theme.
Yeah.
And this one's cool. Like, yeah, you're making a band and you're like touring them around and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's really cool. We didn't get a chance to play Rock Hard.
No, not yet. Yeah, unfortunately.
So unfortunately, we'll be on this list, although we are going to rectify that soon.
Yes.
But I totally agree. Like having this whole like forming a band as like the theme for a game is really neat. And this one gives you like public goals to go for and stuff. But it's just about like how do I cross off as many things as humanly possible on one turn, and you will probably have a turn that is like pretty insane.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Oh, I am James Webb, defender of the web. I'm doing a board game ad read.
For what? For the game Web that we're doing an ad read for?
Yeah, Webb. It's like an offshoot Spider-Man thing. Admittedly, Webb is a little on the nose, but yeah, I'm James Webb.
No. James Webb is from. It means for the James Webb Space Telescope. It's about James Webb, the NASA administrator from like the '60s.
Oh.
That James.
But he was a superhero.
No,
He
it's
got
not.
bit
It's
by-
not a superhero game.
He got
it's
bit by a
about,
telescope.
It's about recreating. He got bit by a telescope. I just registered what you said. No, not that, James.
Oh, okay.
It's about a
That's a
board
different
game.
guy.
It's a different guy got bit by a telescope. Just get out of here. I'll do the freaking ad.
Okay.
Jeez,
All right.
Go. Web is about this game, Webb, right here. This is a game where you're trying to construct a famous image from the James Webb Telescope back into completion. You'll have all of these tiles and they'll all be mixed up and jumbled around, and you can take actions to flip some tiles over, to rearrange them, to swap tiles with some of your opponents, and you're trying to complete these wonderful, beautiful images faster than anyone else. And if Webb seems interesting to you, you can follow their website. It will be linked down in the description below where you can follow their Kickstarter coming out on the World Wide Web. You can follow that to check out Webb. Make sure to check it out, and big shout out to them for sponsoring. Another one of those games that's small but just is so good. This is Castle Combo.
So incredible.
You're the one who knew about this game. I didn't, and you were like, we got to play this game called Castle Combo. You went and bought it, and
Yeah.
it's so good.
Castle Combo is so
I don't
fun.
know, why is it so good?
I just like because it does so many great things while keeping everything nice and simple.
Yeah.
So like it's a game you can play even if you don't have a ton of bandwidth.
Yes.
This is a game where you're ultimately making a 3x3 grid of cards.
That's it.
And you want everything that is on your cards to be as synergistic as possible with everything else.
Score as much as possible, yeah.
Score as much as possible. So each card will score at the end of the game, and they are all going to provide you some sort of thing that happens when you play the card. You'll be getting money or keys. Your money is what you use to buy the cards. You need to be keeping that coming in. Your keys kind of help you mitigate some stuff. They're going to have 1 or 2 shields in the top right, and then at the bottom there's going to be some sort of scoring condition. And it might be for every red shield you have in this column or this row and column, get 2 points or 3 points or whatever it might be. Other ones are, for every type of, there's like village cards and castle cards. For every village card you have, you get a point. So it's like, okay, maybe I want to get a bunch of village characters, so I get some points. There's other
If
things
it's
that
on
give
the
you
left side of your grid or whatever.
some of them are spatial, so they're all really different. And I think that's what's really fun is that every time you've got this decent size, 2 stacks of cards. And every time it's an interesting puzzle trying to figure out like, okay, based on what's on offer here, how do I try to make sure that this is as valuable as possible?
Because there's always 3 village cards and 3 castle cards available, and you can buy one of them.
Yeah, and your messenger will always be at one of the locations where you can spend a key to switch that location, or you can spend a key to wipe the 3 cards and draw 3 new ones to try to get the color of shields you're looking for, or whatever it might be. And the fact that each of the cards has a unique scoring thing. It's just like no two games will ever be the same because you're always going to have a different selection to build from.
It's got a similar vibe to something like Fantasy Realms, where it's like you're going to end the game in Fantasy Realms with like 7 cards, and you basically like this card is worth 10 points, but if you also have this card, it's worth 40 points, and you're basically just trying to make the best hand. This is kind of similar, where it's like you're just trying to make the best grid, but you're doing it with what is available. You obviously don't have access to all the cards, so you're kind of like, well, I already have 2 red shields, and this one gives me points for red shields, so I'll get this card now. And then, where do I want to put it? Well, I want to put it here because this card wants red shields, but it has a green shield, and this card wants green shields, and so it's like, it's just a little puzzle, but it's not a hard puzzle.
No.
Whereas I feel like Fantasy Realms a lot of times can get kind of like, this is, and on top
It's
of
a
that,
little wordy sometimes with like what negates what.
yes,
and
like blanking things. Also, Fantasy Realms definitely benefits from like knowing what cards exist.
Yes.
In the game, this one is just like, it's kind of what's out there. It's all very simple. It's got this really like goofy cartoony art, which is also like really cute and fun.
I can't remember if it was Jimmy or someone said it's like the Miko if but adorable.
Yeah, right. The Miko made something
like the
cute.
Miko like makes really art, but it's kind of
weird,
a little weirder or sometimes grotesque, and this one's just like cute baby Miko art.
Yeah,
which is,
it really
honestly
is,
a really good thing. I'm
It's
see
a
more
really
of.
good point. But it's so much fun. Again, you can play it with dang near anyone. It's a great end of the night game. It's small box, so again, it's good to like bring anywhere. It's just really fun.
It's really, really solid. Cannot recommend it highly enough, especially like my wife and I play, and we're often tired by the end of the day with a 2.5-year-old who's on a tear. But we have enough energy for that, which is really nice. God, it was such a good year, dude. Shipwrights is 4. That's insane.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Shipwrights is like 4. Maybe top 10 all time.
Isn't that ridiculous? Shipwrights is 4.
Shipwrights is 4.
That's all right. You got a little behind the scenes right there.
Boom.
You have to pay for that.
Yeah, no, you have to pay extra. Shipwrights of North Sea Redux is number 4 on the list. This was number 1 at our mid-year checkpoint. Basically, from here on out on the list, they're all so good, dude. It's,
Yeah, it's still so good. Kind of like there always has to be a board and dice game. I feel like there always has to be a Garfield game. And this is the only Garfield. There's 3 Garfield games. Inventors and Ezra and Nehemiah came out this year.
And those are in the rankings, but they didn't quite make the top 10.
Shipwrights, though, is just like our game tastes line up with Shem Phillips, who made this game a lot. And this is just like a drafting game. It's got some similarities to It's a Wonderful World in terms of the drafting. We love that game. And this is just that set in that North Sea universe where you're basically be drafting out cards. The cards are going to be, there's like villager cards, building cards, ships, which is mostly what you're trying to do. You're trying to build these ships. And basically you're going to draft these cards just around the table. And then you have a hand of, I think, 7 cards. And you can do 2 things with the card. You can either just ditch the card and get, it's like, I can't remember what it's called in this one. In It's Wonderful, it's called Recycle.
Yeah.
But basically, you just get whatever resource,
give you a resource
on it. It
or
might allow you
whatever.
to draw another card. You got to discard it to get whatever benefit it has. Or you can build it and play it into your kind of tableau. And buildings will be like worker placement spots because you have these little workers. That'll give you stuff. Like, it gives you 4 coins, and you can now use those coins to do this and all this different kind of stuff.
And if you use a worker for a worker placement spot, you get it back.
You get it back, indeed. But sometimes you have to pay workers because they're like building a ship and they're going to sail away and all this kind of stuff. So like, it's just, you're doing that so you can either build them, you build buildings, you can build townsfolk, which will go underneath your buildings, which will make them even better. You can start working on these ships, which are going to be these big hits of points. You can get Jarls, which are going to be like some kind of endgame scoring. You're bumping up some tracks. It's all simultaneous play. It's very multiplayer solitaire, but we like multiplayer solitaire games. But it's simultaneous play, so you're all just kind of doing your own thing. It's just like, it just scratches that itch that we love so much. And so does Shem Phillips, because we have very similar tastes in games, obviously. I don't know, it's just something about this one that is like, Some people will have to do our ranking of our favorite Garfield games because it's maybe number one for me. It's so good.
It's hard to beat, man. It's really hard to beat.
so good.
There's something so satisfying about maximizing and doing all you can and all of the decision points along the way. Like you said, those townsfolk, you can tuck under a building.
Yeah.
And then every time you use that building, you get to do that extra action. Or you can just discard the townsfolk to do the effect on it one time, right now, and then it's gone.
You have like
and sometimes I need that right now, but I want to put it under there for, And
then you have like craftspeople who help build your ships, and you can use them once, and then they go away, or you can tuck them underneath the building, and then you have their ability for forever, but it costs a gold to do that. So you're like, is it worth it to do that? It's just, there's a lot going on.
You have to make a ton of tough decisions.
Yes.
It is so ridiculously fun, though. It is so much fun for us. It just hits that spot where
it just sings.
We love It's a Wonderful World, and this game was very much inspired by It's a Wonderful World, but it's a wonderful world on steroids because now you have worker placement and stuff you can do. Oh, it's so good, man. It's hard. But there are literally 3 games we enjoy more.
That are way better
and
than
that
this
just
game.
shows the strength of this year.
Because this game is trash. It's kind of crazy that Slay the Spire is number 3. That goes to show how good a year this is, because Slay the Spire is like all-timer for me. I mean,
Slay the Spire is dope.
Slay the Spire is so good. So Slay the Spire is based off the video game Slay the Spire, but this is a board game
Which is based off
version.
the book, which is based off the original film.
Which is based off of the Broadway play.
Yeah, exactly. It was Broadway.
Which was Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah, it's Fiddler on the Roof.
Basically,
So, that's how we got here.
That's how we got.
As we all know, we don't need to explain it to you.
Yeah, the roof, you're getting to the top of the spire where you'll find your
Your
fiddle.
fiddler. Yeah, you're
And
like fiddle. Yeah, and maybe perhaps you can become a rich man.
Exactly.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay. But nonetheless, Slay the Spire, the video game is a deck building game. It literally just it is a board game. It's just a deck building game where you're fighting these enemies and making your way up the spire, trying to get through 3 of the spires. It's a roguelite, so when you lose all your progress, you go back to the beginning.
Yes.
And so this is a board game version of it, because again, the video game is like 90% a board game. The main thing the video game does is there's a lot of cards and stuff that require a lot of bookkeeping that the video game can just do.
Right.
So they had to adapt a lot of the cards in this game, but they did it really, really well. And this is so much fun. I mean, again, if you like Slay the Spire, the video game, Slay the Spire, the board game, you're probably going to really like, because you already like the video game, and there's a lot of similarities. But each person plays a different character. Every character has a completely unique deck, and they really play completely differently from each other.
Yeah, they all have their own different vibe and stuff. This is something that, like, Nick and I were huge fans of Slay the Spire for a long
Hundreds of
time
hours
prior
into
to
the
there ever
game,
being a board game. And each character feels different. You have the Ironclad, who's all about getting strength and stuff like that, and they just hit really hard and can kind of take lumps and then heal up. You have the Defect, who has these orbs that you're slinging around. The Silent is poisoning people and throwing these shivs. And as you have all these different characters, and like the main thing that we like about the board game is that everything in terms of the vibe, the feeling, the cards and stuff are all the same from Slay the Spire. They have changed some of the math to make it easy for us who don't have a computer for a brain. But this is a cooperative experience.
Yes.
Slay the Spire is a solitaire game. You can mod it, I think, to play it cooperatively, but it's just you.
Yep.
And here, now I have 2 characters, or 3 or 4, that are all in this fight simultaneously. So your style as the Silent, my style as the Defect, we're able to work them together and kind of chain off of each other's stuff, which is something that is completely unique from the video game.
Yeah.
And I think it's super duper cool because there's not a specific turn structure. Like, I'm going to play all my cards, then Nick's going to play all his cards. We can pick and choose the order that we play stuff in. So maybe I play a card that makes this bad guy vulnerable, and then Nick, who has a big attack card ready in the wings, goes and plays it on that bad guy and gets to make use of the vulnerable that I produced. Yeah. That is unique.
You can sometimes give block to each other. It's really cooperative. Like, feels cooperative. When you're getting... The enemies are in various rows, and the enemies in your row will be attacking you, but you can attack anyone. So you're like, okay, Mike's about to get hit really, really hard.
Let's all take care of this enemy,
and I have enough block to block the one that's coming at me. So you're like working together and discussing what you're doing. And then again, it's just Slay the Spire, which is an excellent video game. Like you said, we both probably have over 100 hours for sure in the video game.
Hundred, yeah.
And so it's just taking that and then adding this really fun cooperative nature to it, and it's just like it's so much fun.
It is really, really good. If you're a fan of Slay the Spire, this is a really loyal adaptation while also providing something new and unique in the cooperative experience. I do think that is absolutely worth exploring for anyone that thinks like, oh, it's just a carbon copy of this. Why do I need it? It depends. Like if you're a solo player, then maybe just keep playing Slay the Spire. But like we like to play stuff together, and like the things that it provides, the opportunities are so cool that it makes this just absolutely worth having.
Yeah. Let's show how good of a year it was for like small, easy family games. Where number 2 is one of those games. That is Captain Flip. Captain Flip is
baby.
a freaking masterpiece.
Captain Flip is a masterpiece. It is beauty and simplicity.
It's always interesting every turn.
Always interesting. This is a very simple tile laying game where you are recruiting crew for your ship. And you're all going to be playing on the same type of ship that has these different columns that you're trying to fill up to get these bonuses and things like that. And each of the crew will either have something they do when they get placed or some sort of end game scoring thing. And each tile is double-sided. Every tile will have a different crew member on both the sides. So when you pick a tile, you get to see only one of the sides.
Yep. No peeking.
No peekies. And you have to make a decision. Do I want to put this person into my ship right now, or do I want to flip my tile? And if I do that, I have to place the other side without knowing what's coming next. And again, you're trying to do these things to gain as much money as possible because that is your points.
Yep.
And the thing we've talked about a lot this year with this game is a simple fact that I only get some of the information. And do I take what I know I have, or the allure of the unknown is that strong enough that I want to F around and find out?
Yeah, it basically means every single turn is interesting because there's a ton of tiles. There's no memorizing what.
No, not at all.
Because they're not always the same on either side. Like there's multiple like swabby cards, but like on the back of each one of those is a different crew member. So you never know which one you have. So it's every single time you're just like, do I keep this or not? And it's like, it's always an interesting decision. So every single game you play, every single turn in every single game you play is always interesting because you're always dealing with unknown knowledge where you're just like, I don't know what's on the other side. Sometimes you're like, oh no, this is what I need, boom, perfect. But it's like, usually you have to take at least a second to be like,
I mean, I'd say I flip the tile at least 50% of the time.
Yeah, probably, exactly.
You know what I
and
mean?
that's huge. And there's a couple different maps you can play on too, which will change up the game a little bit, but even if it was the one map, it just wouldn't matter. It's just so simple. And because that like decision space is always going to be interesting because you will never know what's on the other side. It is that tantalizing like, what if it's way better? And then it makes it interesting every single time.
Yeah, and the crew themselves are really cool and fun and stuff. And there's like the cook who gives 1 coin for every character in that row when they get placed, including themselves. So like, well, I want to place that once I have a bunch of people on things, you know. There's these gunners, which are 5 coins, 5 points, which is a lot. But if you end the game with 3 of them, you just lose automatically. So, but there's also tiles that allow you to flip tiles that have already been placed. So I can be like, well, I'll put this down and flip it later and then see what's on the other side. And when it flips over, it activates. There's just really great fun things, but it's so simple to explain. The player aid tells you everything you need to know about each crew member, and you can get right into playing, but it is something that will be forever interesting. It's like Can't Stop will be forever interesting because you can always have the question of like, what happens if I roll the dice one more time? Maybe something good, maybe something not so good, and Captain Flip is an infinitely playable game, and it's so easy to table, and that is vastly important. And that's why it's number 2. But at the end of the game, Nick, we be Euro gamers.
That's right.
So we got one more. Real quick, if you jumped to number 1, you have to subscribe. If you didn't see our top-down thing shaming you, we are shaming you now. Subscribe.
Just a double shame. If you're here the whole time, we're not talking about you.
We appreciate you. Become a patron if you've been watching the whole time. Okay, Nick, what's number 1?
Number 1 is a game that we knew, well, we didn't know we were going to like, but we had a pretty good idea. This is SETI, The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
Yeah.
This is 2 years in a row now where CG's been my favorite game.
It's so good.
SETI is bananas. So a little thing right now is while we're releasing this top 10, we are also releasing a playthrough of our favorite game, which is SETI. So now if you saw that before this, it's going to be blacked out the box. You won't know what it is, but nonetheless, we have a playthrough out for it literally right now. So when you're done with this, make sure to go watch that playthrough if you want to see how SETI plays. SETI is, like, it might be a top 10 game of all time for me. It's early to tell that, so we'll see once we do our top 10, we do our top 100 next year.
It's right up our alley, though.
It's like tailor-made for me. It's just got like great Euro mechanics. I love astronomy. I'm like an amateur astronomy buff. I love astronomy.
Sure.
And so this is about astronomy. It's just like, it's like made in a lab for me. But this is a game where you are looking for extraterrestrial intelligence. And the cool thing is in this game, you will find it. You will find two aliens out there. And then you can interact with them and they can kind of give you points. You can kind of do stuff.
They change up the game. They change up some of the opportunities and mechanisms.
It's really cool. And you don't know, you always put them face down. So you don't know which ones are in the game because there's 5. You only use 2 per game. So you never know which ones are in the game until you flip them over, which I think is really fun and cool. But yeah, this is one of those games where it's like the individual, we talk about it a lot, where it's like the individual actions in SETI are really, really simple. Yeah. But how you can work them together and how you want to play out your game, there's a ton of depth going on. But it's like you can get these probes and you can put them into space. Putting them into space is 2 credits, 2 money. That's the whole action. Yeah. So simple. You then can move that around. And if your probe is on a planet space like Mercury or something like that, you can either send it to orbit the planet or land on the planet. And when you do either one of those, you're going to get benefits. And there's going to be different benefits depending on which one. And that's it. It's very, very simple. And like those things, it's like, oh, to like land on there, it's 3 energy. To orbit something, it's like 2 credits and an energy or something like that. It's all really, really simple in terms of what you're doing. But the way you can work things and you can get these cards, and the cards will allow you to also do these actions, but a lot of times for cheaper. You can there's so many avenues you can go and so many ways you can kind of go about it. But it's all relatively simple, but it turns into this kind of like very nice, just really good game. It's hard to describe how good it is.
It is so good. It's just really...
I knew from when we started playing, I was like, well, there it is. That's it.
Yeah, I was kind of like instantly like, all right,
there you go.
Yeah, it's the best one.
I guess.
It's been such a good year of gaming, though. I agree. Everything that you said. One thing that's really cool with all that card play is, yes, it allows you to do different actions, but they also give you missions to complete.
Yes.
Where... maybe the next 3 times I launch a probe, I get this little bonus. There are these milestones that you're going to be claiming throughout the game that are going to give you some end game scoring, although most of the points are in game.
Yeah.
The different types of aliens and the things they provide are so cool. They have their own cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And like the whole discovery
of
like, oh, this is what we're dealing with. Oh, that's so cool. And the fact that you don't know ahead of time is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so, please play it that way. It's so fun. To be like, all right, especially when you're playing the first time, like we were doing that, I'm like, I don't even know what these aliens do at all.
Yeah,
we didn't even look into like how they work. And I'm like, oh, so we get this whole little sheet to read. It's awesome. It's a really, the player aid, it's like a little player booklet. Gives you all the information you need once you know the game to reference. It's such a good player aid. And it keeps everything moving. And there's just a bajillion ways to get points. And you will get a lot of points in this game by doing this and that, and you can do very different things and still be very in the hunt within the game. So it's so fun, man. It's so good. It's right up our alley. To me, it feels very Lost Ruins of Arnaki, and the whole idea of like trying to eke out as much as you can out of every round. How you use your resources, which are fairly tight, kind of like you're never going to have 1 billion compasses or coins in Arnak.
Yeah.
Similar here with the credits and energy. So you really have to make some tough decisions and hopefully gain, stuff out of whatever actions you do to be able to keep going in the round.
It really is. The decision space, right? Because in Lost Ruins of Arnak, you can always get more resources. Like there's just ways to do it. And this you really can't.
It's
like
tough.
Getting extra energy or credits, which are the 2 kind of main resources. It's really hard to get anymore. And a lot of times you'll get like a credit for doing something. So it's like the decisions about like, okay, I started my round, you get some income at the beginning of the round. I have 4 energy, 4 credits. How am I going to use those 4? Because I probably won't get any more.
Yeah.
The decisions of like how do you decide to use those resources is so difficult, but so good. But then on top of that, the cards, you can also just discard them and recycle them for some stuff. It's just so freaking good. It's just, the way you can combo things together and work stuff, it's just, I don't know, it's made for me. It's made for me.
It's our favorite of the year. That is our list. Like we said, this was such a strong year for gaming. There's so much more to talk about. So over on our Patreon, we have a couple things. One, we have a kind of a look into how we come up with these lists, so the deliberation we call it, and we kind of, you get to see us curating the list in real time, like deciding, we like this better than that, using PubMeeple, which is an awesome ranking engine that you can use for free. And so you can check that out. We also have 20 more games we want to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them briefly in a very kind of casual video.
Yep.
But hear about a lot more games because we mentioned a few of them that didn't quite make this list, but they're so good still.
so many, yeah.
There's so many more to talk about. So we'll be talking about that on Patreon. And for anyone that became a patron in 2024 or remained a patron in 2024, we really appreciate the support this year. It really helps us out, helps us pay for this new studio.
Sure does.
Which we hope you are enjoying because we love working here a lot.
Yeah, this is kind of the end of the first, I guess, first half of the first year because we moved halfway. But
That's right.
It's been a wild year, y'all.
We really appreciate it. You've seen, if you are a patron, your name scrolling down here. Again, if you want to be on this list in future videos of ours, consider becoming a patron. Let us know, though, in the comments, your favorite game of the year that released this year. Let us know your favorite game. If it's an older game that you discovered, we'll be doing a list on those types of games real soon here, and a bunch of other stuff. Is there anything else, man?
That's it.
Thumb this video up if you can. If you're new to us, we are the Brothers Smurf. Please consider subscribing, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for another great year. 2024 was one for the books. Big shouts out to all of our year sponsors, Board Game Geek, Restoration Games, Garfield Games, and Artig Tables. Check out all those in the link below. And Crystal Dax, we give this whole year, 2024, only the good stuff, we give it to you.